I always thought I had a good read on people, especially my wife. Her name's Callista, and for 11 years, I would have sworn she was my forever. We met in college, married in a sunflower field, and built a life that, on the surface, looked like something out of a magazine spread. I own a small architecture firm in Boulder, and she's a high school guidance counselor. We have 2 kids, Oliver and May. Every Sunday, we hosted family brunch. Every December, we sent out cheesy holiday cards. Every day, I believed the lie a little more. It started with a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. Callista was in the kitchen, chopping carrots, when her phone rang. I was in the laundry room behind the half-open door. "You can't call me right now," she whispered, her voice a different tone, sharp, nervous, intimate. Then she said his name. Jonah. That name didn't belong to any of our friends. I remember the carrot crunching louder as she chopped too hard. I stood there frozen, the basket of towels in my hands suddenly weightless. That night, I played it cool. I smiled through dinner, tucked the kids in, made love to her like everything was normal. But something had cracked in me. I began to notice little things. Her late-night texts, her sudden interest in yoga again, the way she'd rush to shower the second she got home. I checked our cell phone records. There were 37 calls to Jonah in the past month. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted to be sure. I hired someone. His name was Miles, a former cop turned private investigator. Discreet, expensive, ruthless. He said he'd have something for me in a week. Those 7 days felt like an eternity. When the envelope finally arrived, I opened it in the garage like I was hiding a crime. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Callista, smiling, laughing, kissing a man outside a motel off the I-25. My knees buckled. There was a timestamp. Last Tuesday, while I was picking up May from soccer practice. That night, she came home with Thai food and kissed me like she loved me. And I kissed her back, wondering how deep the betrayal ran. I stared at her and saw a stranger. And suddenly, I wasn't sure who I had really married. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside her, listening to the shallow rhythm of her breath, trying to match it, trying not to scream. The photos were burned into my mind. Callista's face tilted with desire, her fingers twisted in Jonah's collar like a teenager in love. I kept asking myself one question. Why? What did he have that I didn't? Was it just sex? Or something deeper, something missing in me that I had never noticed until now? The next morning, I dropped Oliver at school and parked outside a coffee shop a few blocks from Callista's workplace. I wasn't proud of what I was doing, but pride had already been stripped from me. I watched her pull into the lot, still sipping the coffee I made her that morning. She looked peaceful, clean, like the perfect mother, the devoted counselor, the woman I had built my life around. I followed her to a yoga studio after school. I stayed in the car, heart racing, until a familiar black truck pulled up beside her. Jonah. I saw him before she did. Mid-30s. Muscular. The kind of guy who still wore baseball caps backward and called women baby without irony. When she saw him, she smiled like nothing else in the world existed. I couldn't take my eyes off her expression. It was joy, not lust, not guilt. Joy. She kissed him on the mouth before walking in together, arms brushing like teenagers sneaking off. I wanted to barge in and shatter the illusion right there. But I didn't. Not yet. That night, I told her I had a late meeting. I didn't. I sat in the parking lot behind our neighborhood, staring at my steering wheel. I think I cried, but not in the dramatic, sobbing way. Just a quiet, steady leak, like something inside had been punctured. Around midnight, I slipped back into bed. She stirred. "Everything okay?" she mumbled. "Yeah, I lied. Just tired." Over the next week, I started documenting everything. I made copies of the photos, downloaded call logs, and backed up our shared files. I watched her lie to me every day. I asked questions I already knew the answers to. Where were you today? Did you see anyone after school? How's yoga going? Her answers were smooth, polished, practiced. The betrayal wasn't just in the act. It was in the ease with which she deceived me. On Friday, Miles sent me a video. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. And what I saw in that shaky motel footage changed something permanent in me. It wasn't just physical. She loved him. I saw it in her eyes. And I knew then that the woman I married no longer existed. I started rehearsing the confrontation in my head, dozens of versions, each with different levels of anger, heartbreak, and drama. But no version felt satisfying, because deep down I knew it wouldn't end with an apology or a tearful confession. Callista wasn't going to admit anything unless I forced her. So I waited. I needed the right moment. Meanwhile, I became a ghost in my own home. I smiled when the kids were around, helped with homework, made pancakes on Sunday, but all of it felt like a performance. Callista didn't notice. Or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. She was so wrapped up in her fantasy with Jonah, she couldn't see that our family was crumbling beneath her. One night, I asked her if she loved me. Just like that. We were sitting on the couch watching a movie, something forgettable. She looked at me, startled, then smiled. Of course I do. What kind of question is that? Her words were automatic. Hello? I stared at her until she turned back to the screen. That was when I knew. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. I was dealing with a woman who had rewritten our history in her head. In her mind, this version of our life, the lies, the affair, was justified. I had become the background noise to her new story. That weekend, I arranged for the kids to stay with my sister. I told Callista I wanted a night alone with her. Just us, I said. She looked suspicious for a moment, then softened. Maybe she thought I was trying to reconnect. Maybe she thought guilt was making me romantic. Either way, she agreed. I cooked her favorite meal. I lit candles. We drank wine on the porch. And just when she started to relax, I slid the envelope across the table. She froze. Her hand hovered above it like it might burn her. What is this? Open it. She didn't move for several seconds. Then she slowly peeled it open, and I watched her face change. First confusion, then horror, then something colder, defensiveness. You followed me? She asked, voice trembling. You hired someone to spy on me? I needed the truth, I said quietly. Because you weren't giving it to me. She stood up, pacing now, shaking her head. You don't understand. No, Callista. You don't understand. You lied to me every single day. You looked me in the eye and kissed me with his mouth still on yours. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she whispered. Then how was it supposed to happen? I asked. Were you just going to leave one day? Or wait until I found out on my own? She didn't answer. She just stared at me, and for the first time in months, I saw the real her. Not the mother. Not the counselor. Not the wife. Just the woman who had destroyed everything. Callista didn't apologize. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. Instead, she sat back down and said the one thing I hadn't prepared myself to hear. I love him. 3 words, calmly spoken, like she was ordering coffee. My ears rang. I gripped the edge of the table to keep from shaking. You love him. I repeated. What about our kids? What about me? I still care about you, she said, and that made it worse. But Jonah, it's different. He makes me feel alive again. I laughed. I actually laughed, sharp and bitter. Alive? You've been sneaking around behind my back like a coward, and you think that's what being alive feels like. She looked away, and for a moment, I thought I saw regret. But then she said, it started 2 years ago. We met at a teacher conference. He was charming, funny, and I felt seen in a way I hadn't in a long time. So it's my fault? I snapped. You cheated because I wasn't seeing you enough? No, she said too quickly. But we were distant. You were always at work, always stressed about your firm, the deadlines, the projects. I didn't even recognize you anymore. And instead of talking to me, you started sleeping with someone else, I said. She didn't deny it. It's more complicated than that, she mumbled. I stood up. No, it's not. You made a choice. Over and over again. You chose him. The silence stretched. I finally said, you need to move out. Tomorrow. Her head jerked up. What? You heard me. I'll tell the kids we're separating. You can figure out where to go, but you're not staying here. She scoffed. This is my home too. Not anymore. I didn't wait for her response. I walked upstairs, locked the door, and collapsed on the bed fully clothed. The next morning, she was gone before the kids woke up. She left a note on the counter. We'll talk later. That was it. No explanation. No apology. Just a 6-word brushstroke to end our life together. I told the kids she was staying with a friend. May cried. Oliver shut down. I didn't know how to fix it, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever version of Callista I'd been holding on to was gone. And whoever took her place had no intention of coming back. The days that followed were thick with silence. May kept asking when Mommy was coming home. I gave her the same answer every time. Soon, baby. We just need a little time. Oliver, older and sharper, stopped asking. He spent more time in his room with headphones on, and when he looked at me, it was like he already knew. I tried to keep routines alive, school drop-offs, work meetings, takeout dinners. But everything felt mechanical, like I was moving through fog. Then Callista texted. We need to talk. Alone. I agreed. We met at a neutral place, a park we used to bring the kids to, back when everything still felt real. She looked tired, dull. The brightness that once made me fall for her had dimmed, or maybe it had just shifted to someone else. I'm not moving back in, she said immediately, like she needed to get it out before I said anything. I wasn't asking you to, I replied. She nodded. I've been staying at Jonah's. That hit me harder than I expected. I knew it, but hearing it aloud was like being hit again with the same blow, only this time without warning. The kids deserve the truth, I said. I'm not going to lie to them much longer. They're not ready, she insisted. May still thinks we're just taking a break. And Oliver doesn't? I asked. He hasn't said a word to me about it. I think he knows more than we realize. She looked away. We can do this amicably, she added, avoiding eye contact. Co-parenting. No courts. No fighting. For the kids. I stared at her, amazed by how easily she used words like amicably and co-parenting, like this was a business transaction. You don't get to burn everything down and then draft the recovery plan, I said. You lost the right to steer this the moment you lied to our faces. Her expression tightened. I made a mistake. No. You made a choice. Repeatedly. Stop calling it a mistake just because you regret the consequences. She flinched, but didn't argue. You'll hear from my lawyer next week, I said as I stood up. We'll do this the legal way. Clean lines. Custody split. Assets divided. And I want the house. I figured, she whispered. I didn't reply. I walked away, leaving her on that park bench with the life she'd chosen. That night, I sat in Oliver's room. He was reading, pretending not to notice me. I didn't push. I just sat beside him, silent for a long time. Then he finally asked, "Is she coming back?" I shook my head. I don't think so, but... He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He just turned the page of his book and said, "Good." A month passed. The house felt both emptier and heavier without her. There were no more whispered phone calls or fake smiles, but in their place was the awkward stillness of adjusting to a new normal. May cried herself to sleep some nights. I'd find her curled in a ball, clutching one of Callista's scars like a lifeline. I hated her for making our daughter feel abandoned. I hated that I still loved her, even in flashes, even when I didn't want to. The divorce proceedings started. My lawyer, Vanessa, was thorough and fierce, which was good, because Callista had already hired one of the best family attorneys in the city. Apparently, Jonah had deep pockets. That stung. It meant this wasn't just some wild affair. He was investing in her future. They wanted joint custody, of course. I didn't fight that. I knew the kids needed their mom, but I made it clear she wasn't walking away with the house or a shred more than she deserved. Meanwhile, rumors began to spread at the kids' school. Parents whispered. A few acquaintances reached out just to check in, but I could hear the curiosity buried beneath the concern. Small towns don't keep secrets for long. The real twist came during a random coffee run. I was standing in line at a cafe near my office when I heard a voice behind me say, "You don't know me, but I know your wife." I turned to see a woman in her late 30s, well-dressed but visibly tense. "I'm Lydia," she said. "Jonah's ex-wife." My blood froze. Ex? Well, not officially. We're still in the middle of our own divorce. She paused. "Because of your wife." I stepped aside, and we sat down with our coffees, both of us buzzing with disbelief. Lydia told me everything. The overlap. The lies. How Jonah had told her he was traveling for work when he was actually staying in cheap hotels with Callista. "He's a serial cheater," she said flatly. "You're not the first husband he's blown up. And unless she wakes up, she won't be the last wife he breaks." I didn't know what to say. She slid a manila folder across the table. Bank records. Hotel receipts. Call logs. In case you need leverage. I stared at her. "Why are you helping me?" "Because someone should have warned me years ago," she said. "And because I want to see him squirm." That night, I opened the folder. There it was, proof that their love story wasn't just messy. It was built on layers of deception. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but something inside me clicked. The kind of calm that only comes before a storm. I hid Lydia's folder in my office safe, behind old tax documents and passports. I wasn't ready to use it yet, but knowing I had it gave me a sense of power I hadn't felt in months. Callista, meanwhile, seemed to be slipping deeper into Jonah's orbit. She picked up the kids for her weekends in a new car, one he probably paid for. She wore different clothes. Softer, more revealing. She started calling Jonah her partner in front of May like it was just some natural progression. I bit my tongue, but it burned. One afternoon, I stopped by the school to drop off May's forgotten lunch. I caught a glimpse of Callista through the glass of the counselor's office, laughing, leaning close to Jonah. He wasn't even subtle about it anymore. I found out he had taken some consulting role with the district, likely just an excuse to be near her. It was reckless, unprofessional, and from the way one of the other teachers looked at me as I walked past, I knew it wasn't just me who noticed. At home, the cracks were widening. Oliver stopped going to her place altogether. He told me he didn't feel safe there, not physically, but emotionally. She acts like nothing happened, he said one night. Like we're just supposed to smile and play along. I didn't push him. I didn't force visits. Callista sent me long texts accusing me of poisoning the kids against her. I didn't respond. I forwarded them to Vanessa. But then something happened that shattered my fragile resolve. May came home crying. Not her usual soft whimper, but a full-on panic attack. She said she'd overheard Jonah yelling at Callista, something about choosing her kids over him. Then he slammed a door so hard a picture fell off the wall. Callista had told her it was nothing, that Jonah was just having a bad day. But May was terrified. That night, I sat in my office, folder open, staring at Jonah's trail of destruction across multiple relationships and families. Lydia had even included photos of bruises on her arm. She never reported them. He was smart, she had said. He never left anything clear enough to prove. But now he was in my family's life, around my kids. And Callista either couldn't see the danger or didn't want to. I knew then I couldn't just let things play out. I had to step in, not out of vengeance, not even out of anger, but because the people I loved were standing too close to a fire, and I was the only one who knew how far the flames could spread. I scheduled a meeting with Vanessa the next morning. I handed her the folder from Lydia and watched her expression tighten as she flipped through each page. "This is solid," she said. "If we time this right, we could use it for custody leverage or more." "I'm not trying to destroy her," I said, and I meant it. "I just want the kids safe. I want her to see who he really is before it's too late." Vanessa nodded. "Then we need to make her see what you see. Not in court. In reality." She paused. "Have you considered bringing Lydia into this?" I hesitated. "I don't want to put her through more than she's already been through." "She gave you this for a reason," Vanessa said. "Let's talk to her." We did. Lydia agreed to meet Callista. She didn't want drama. She just wanted to look her in the eye and tell her what Jonah really was. It took some convincing to get Callista to agree to the meeting. She thought it was manipulative and beneath us. But in the end, curiosity won. We met at a neutral spot, a small cafe with too many windows to hide behind. I stayed back, watching from the sidewalk through the glass. Callista arrived first. Lydia walked in minutes later, calm and composed, but with fire in her eyes. The conversation lasted 32 minutes. I know because I timed it. Callista didn't speak much. She mostly listened. Lydia spoke with quiet intensity, occasionally pointing to papers she'd brought with her emails, receipts, timelines. At one point, Callista's hands went to her mouth. Her eyes welled up. Lydia reached across the table once, gently, then stood up and left. Callista stayed behind for another 10 minutes. She didn't touch her coffee, just stared into it like she was trying to see the bottom of her choices. That night, she called me. Her voice was small. "I didn't know," she said. "I didn't want to know. I thought he was different." "He is different," I replied. "Just not in the way you hoped." She was quiet for a long time. "I don't want him around the kids anymore," she finally said. "Then don't let him be," I told her. "You have the power to change this." The next day, she texted, "Jonah moved out." I ended it. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was exhaustion, because it wasn't over. Not even close. What she did to us couldn't be erased with a breakup. And what came next would test every ounce of resolve I had left. Jonah didn't go quietly. Within a week of Callista ending things, she received a string of angry voicemails, threats wrapped in sarcasm, laced with guilt and emotional blackmail. He accused her of betrayal, of ruining everything they built, and warned her she'd regret walking away. She forwarded them to me. Some were chilling, others just sad. But all of them confirmed what Lydia had said. Jonah wasn't just manipulative. He was volatile. Callista took a leave of absence from the school. Said it was stress-related. I think part of her was genuinely scared. For the first time, she seemed to realize the consequences of her choices. I'd like to say I felt compassion. Maybe part of me did. But the rest of me remembered the nights I sat alone in that house while she lied to my face, the pain in Oliver's silence, the terror in May's eyes. I didn't forgive her. Not yet. But I didn't want her destroyed either. I wanted her changed. Rebuilt. so we worked on boundaries. She saw the kids only in public places for now. I insisted on supervised visits until the tension calmed. She didn't fight me. Maybe she was too drained to argue, or maybe she finally trusted me more than herself. Meanwhile, Jonah escalated. He showed up once at May's soccer game. Stood across the field, sunglasses on, arms crossed. He didn't approach, but the message was clear. I called the police, filed a report. Then I called Lydia, who told me he had done the same thing to her months ago. Stalking. Subtle intimidation. Always just within the bounds of legality. Vanessa helped file a restraining order. The judge approved it the same week. It wasn't enough to make me feel safe, but it was a start. In the quiet moments, late at night, when the kids were asleep, I started replaying our entire marriage like a film reel. Every time she said she was working late. Every time she smiled at her phone. Every time I ignored my gut. And that's when something new crept in. Not sadness. Not rage. But shame. I had let it happen. I'd chosen comfort over confrontation. And now that illusion had cost me more than I could ever get back. I knew healing wouldn't come from punishing her. Or even Jonah. It would come from owning the fact that I let myself become blind. And deciding I'd never do that again. Things began to settle on the surface. Callista stayed away from Jonah. The restraining order held. The kids resumed some version of normalcy, school, friends, quiet evenings with board games and TV. But the damage lingered beneath everything, like a slow gas leak. Oliver still refused to visit her. May was gentler, more forgiving, but flinched any time someone raised their voice. Callista started therapy. She mentioned it in passing, like she didn't expect me to care. But I did. Not because I wanted her back, God, no, but because part of me needed her to get better. Not for me. For our kids. And maybe even for herself. I started therapy too. At first, I told myself it was just to get tools for parenting through trauma. But the truth is, I was unraveling inside. I needed someone to tell me it was okay to feel everything. Rage, grief, guilt, confusion, and that none of it made me weak. My therapist, Dr. Mallory, was sharp and unflinchingly honest. She didn't let me wallow. She forced me to trace patterns, how I ignored my instincts, how I let conflict slide to keep peace, how I mistook control for love. Betrayal doesn't start when they cheat, she said one day. It starts when you stop seeing yourself. Those words stuck. Meanwhile, Callista tried to repair the bridge with Oliver. She wrote him letters, left him voicemails, sent gifts. He returned none of it. Then one day, out of nowhere, he walked into the kitchen and said, "Can I see her this weekend?" I blinked. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "I just want to say some things." The visit was awkward. Short. But when he came back, he looked lighter. Like some weight had been dropped behind him. He didn't tell me what they talked about. I didn't ask. Some pain is meant to be private. A week later, Vanessa called. Jonah filed a civil complaint. Defamation. I nearly laughed. Based on what? He's claiming that the restraining order and the rumors we stirred have damaged his professional reputation. He had a professional reputation? I scoffed. This is his attempt to stay relevant, Vanessa said. But we'll crush him in court. He has no real case. Just noise. I wanted to believe her. But part of me knew Jonah wouldn't stop until he'd found a new way to sink his claws into someone. And I was tired of waiting for his next move. It was time to make mine. I spent the next few days digging deeper. Jonah had underestimated me. He thought I was another husband he'd steamroll, another obstacle in his charming path of destruction. But he forgot one thing. I had nothing left to lose. Lydia and I began compiling everything. She gave me access to old emails, a flash drive with a backup of messages between Jonah and other women, including one he had strung along while still married to her. We connected the dots. There were patterns, same pet names, same phrases, same tactics. Manipulate, isolate, replace. I contacted a few of the other men, one in Texas, one in Utah, who had also found out too late that Jonah had been part of their marital collapse. 2 agreed to write affidavits. One even had screenshots and a recorded call. This wasn't about revenge. It was about exposure. This man had danced through lies like a wrecking ball in a tuxedo, leaving broken families and emotional shrapnel in his wake. And no one had ever stopped him. Until now. Vanessa built the counterclaim while I put the finishing touches on something more public. A full, detailed timeline. Not speculation, just facts. Receipts. Photos. Testimonies. I didn't plan to post it online, though it would have gone viral in a heartbeat. Instead, I prepared it for one very specific audience, the school board. Jonah had wormed his way into a position that put him around hundreds of students, vulnerable teens who trusted adults to guide them. If even one parent saw what he really was, he'd be finished. I mailed a sealed packet to each board member, anonymously. Just the evidence. No note. No signature. No threats. I didn't need my name attached. The truth was heavy enough. 2 weeks later, a notice appeared on the district website. Jonah Wexler has resigned from his position effective immediately. Callista called me the same day. Was that you? Does it matter? I said. He's out. That's what's important. She was quiet for a while. I wish I'd seen it sooner. We all do things we wish we could undo, I said. The real question is, what do we do next? I heard her breathe, shakier than usual. I'm trying, Owen. Every day. I swear to you, I'm trying. And for the first time, I believed her. But trying wouldn't erase the past. Only one thing could balance the scales. And I had one final move left. My final move wasn't just about justice, it was about reclaiming control. For too long, I'd been reacting, watching, waiting, taking blow after blow while pretending I was still whole. But now, I had the power, and I knew exactly where to aim it. Jonah's civil complaint gave me a gift, discovery. It opened the door to subpoena communications, timelines, financial records. Vanessa filed a counter-motion to request his communications with Callista during the timeframe of their affair, arguing they were central to the case and relevant to reputational damage. Jonah's attorney tried to stall, but the judge granted it. What we got was explosive. Dozens of texts, emails, voice memos, many crude, others mocking, but a few, very few, held dangerous admissions. One message, dated back nearly a year before the affair was discovered, read, "If he ever finds out, I'll bury him before he buries me." Trust me, I didn't need to twist that. I didn't need to embellish. That alone changed the tone. Vanessa smiled when she saw it. "We're not just playing defense anymore," she said. "We're taking the ball in the field." In court, Jonah arrived smug. Callista was there too, seated behind me, quiet, pale, but present. When Vanessa presented the timeline, evidence, and testimonies, Jonah's smirk started to fade. But when she submitted the message into the record and read it aloud, the entire room shifted. His attorney requested a recess within 10 minutes. The judge agreed. Outside the courtroom, Jonah stormed past me, teeth clenched. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "This isn't over." "No," I said calmly. "For you, it never is. That's the problem." Later that day, his team proposed a settlement, full dismissal of his complaint, withdrawal from any future civil action, and a signed affidavit that he'd never have contact with Callista or the kids again. I accepted. But I had one condition: the affidavit would be public, filed in a way any employer or school district could find it. Jonah didn't fight it. I think by then, he knew he'd been cornered by his own words. A week later, Callista came to my house. No makeup. No performance. She handed me a letter. "I wrote it for you," she said. "But also for me. I need to say it all." I didn't open it. Not yet. She knelt to hug May, who clung to her tighter than usual. When Callista stood, she looked at me and said, "Thank you for protecting them." Even when I didn't. I nodded. She left without looking back. And I realized, this wasn't the end of our story. But it was finally the end of Jonah's chapter in it. I waited until the kids were asleep before opening the letter. It was written in blue ink on cream stationery, her handwriting a mix of neat curves and shaky honesty. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't beg for a second chance. She simply told the truth. About how unhappy she'd been. How lonely. How she had convinced herself that Jonah was a lifeline instead of an anchor. She admitted to romanticizing her affair, to turning me into the villain in her mind so she wouldn't have to face what she was doing. "I thought you were distant," she wrote. "But the truth is, you were just tired, carrying everything alone while I drifted further away. And when I should have turned toward you, I turned away. I will never forgive myself for that." It was a strange kind of peace to read it. Not comforting, not healing, but real. Like a deep breath after surfacing from too long underwater. She didn't mention getting back together. There was no illusion left between us. Just shared responsibility for a life once built and now carefully dismantled. I kept the letter, not as a reminder of pain, but as a marker of growth, hers and mine. Over the next few weeks, life took on a different rhythm. The kids laughed more. I started running again, taking Oliver with me some mornings. May slept better. Callista moved into a small rental across town. She showed up for every school event, never missed a handoff, and respected every boundary we'd agreed on. And slowly, I began to trust her again, not as a wife, but as a mother. Then came the school fundraiser, a big public event with teachers, parents, and the board. Callista asked if I'd go with the kids. I agreed. We arrived early, the gym buzzing with chatter and decorations. People greeted me more warmly than I expected. Some even thanked me for what I did, though no one said Jonah's name out loud. Then, during the slideshow of community highlights, an unexpected photo popped up on screen. A group shot of faculty from the previous year. And there he was, Jonah, standing beside Callista, smirking at the camera. Someone in the crowd muttered, "I still can't believe she chose him." And it was loud enough for Callista to hear. I saw her freeze. Then something shocking happened. She walked up to the mic without hesitation. The chatter quieted. "I know not everyone here approves of me," she said, voice calm. "I don't blame you. I made mistakes. Big ones. But I own them. And I'm still here. For my kids. For this community. I'm not asking for applause. Just understanding." There was silence. And then, soft, polite applause. Not out of celebration, but out of respect. She walked back to our table, eyes misty, and whispered, "I needed that." I nodded. She had exposed herself, publicly, just like Jonah had been exposed. But this time, the fallout was hers to carry, with grace. One chapter left, and it belonged to me. The revenge I had planned wasn't cruel. It wasn't loud. It was precise, calculated, and perfectly public. I waited for the right moment, an opportunity that would expose Jonah not just as a manipulative lover, but as a professional fraud. It came in the form of a community mentorship gala. The event featured former leaders from the education sector. Jonah had managed to get himself invited as a panelist, an advisor on youth guidance and character development. The irony made me sick, but it gave me the perfect setting. I partnered quietly with one of the event organizers, a friend from my firm whose daughter had also been affected by Jonah's brief and disastrous stint in the district. We timed it perfectly. The room was packed with educators, board members, and families. I sat in the back with Vanessa and Lydia, watching Jonah take the stage in his usual smug, confident stance. Microphone in hand, he began his speech about integrity and influence. The hypocrisy was staggering, but he didn't know what was coming. Halfway through his speech, the screens behind him flickered. "A technical issue," announced the host. But it wasn't. It was the presentation I had put together, backed by affidavits, voice memos, screenshots, and names. A slow, silent slideshow of truth. One by one, images appeared, messages between Jonah and multiple women, overlapping timelines, evidence of manipulation, testimony from Lydia and others who had crossed paths with him and walked away scorched. The room fell dead silent. Jonah turned to see the screens just as his own words. "If he ever finds out, I'll bury him before he buries me," lit up in large white letters. A gasp rippled through the audience. He froze, stammered something, then stormed off stage. The host didn't stop him. No one did. The silence after was heavier than any applause. The event continued, awkwardly, without further mention of Jonah. The board later issued a statement condemning his inclusion and launched a background review process. Jonah's reputation was gone. Not quietly, not privately, but on a stage, in front of the very people he had tried to impress. Callista called me that night. "That was you, wasn't it?" "It was the truth," I said. "That's all. He'll never recover from that." "Neither did I," I replied. "But at least now, we both get to rebuild, without him haunting every corner of our lives." She didn't argue. She just said, "Thank you for protecting us, even from ourselves." The next day, Jonah deleted every social account he had. The man who once thrived on attention now wanted nothing more than to disappear. And I was finally ready to live. On my terms. Without fear. Without shame. One part left. My beginning. Revenge was complete. Jonah was publicly disgraced. Callista had faced her own reckoning, and the truth was no longer something I carried alone. But something still felt unfinished. It wasn't vengeance I needed anymore. It was release. So I did something unexpected. I invited Callista to dinner. Not at our old favorite restaurant or at my house, but at a quiet little spot in the foothills where no one knew our names. She hesitated before accepting, unsure of my motives. "No surprises," I told her. "Just closure." We sat outside, the sun dipping behind the trees, the the silence between us less hostile now, just old. She looked at me like someone waking from a long sleep. I still think about everything I lost, she said softly. So do I admitted. But I think more about what I learned. She tilted her head. Like what? I took a breath. That love isn't always enough. That truth matters more than comfort. And that sometimes, walking away is the most loving thing you can do for both people. She looked down at her plate. Do you hate me? No, I said. But I don't love you either. Not anymore. And that's okay. For the first time, she nodded without crying, without protesting, without trying to rewrite the narrative. It was quiet acceptance. We talked about the kids, the future, the possibility of healing, but not about us, because there was no more us. After dinner, I handed her an envelope. Inside was a copy of the final custody agreement, updated and signed. I gave her equal time with the kids, not because she deserved it, but because they did, and because I wasn't going to let bitterness parent them. She read it slowly, hands trembling. You're letting me back in. I'm giving them a chance, I corrected. It's not forgiveness. It's responsibility. She wiped a tear. I'll earn it. You'll have to, I said. We walked out together, not as enemies or lovers, but as two people who survived each other. And as we parted in the parking lot, I felt lighter, like something finally unclenched inside me. The next morning, I woke up early, laced my shoes, and ran farther than I had in years. No weight on my chest, no ache in my gut, just breath, motion, peace. I passed a sunflower field, dry and golden now, and didn't look back. For the first time, the past didn't pull at me. It just stood behind me, silent, finished. A year had passed. The dust had settled, but the scars remained, not raw anymore, just quiet reminders. Life was different now, simpler, honest. The firm was doing well. I'd hired a new partner to ease the workload, started teaching a workshop at the local college, and found joy in things that used to feel invisible: coffee that didn't go cold, a walk without checking my phone, a hug from May that wasn't laced with confusion. Oliver had come into his own too. He joined the debate team, started reading philosophy, and talked to me more like a man than a boy. Sometimes I saw glimpses of myself in him, both the good and the guarded. Callista kept her promise. She showed up. She worked at rebuilding her relationship with the kids, quietly, consistently. There were no more whispered arguments, no more missed pickups, no more Jonah. She never brought another man around. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of growth. Either way, I respected it. And I didn't resent her anymore. Not even a little. One rainy Saturday, I opened the drawer in my office where I'd stashed all the old evidence, the photos, the folder from Lydia, the USB drive. I looked at them one last time, then fed them all through the shredder. Every last piece. Not out of denial, but because I didn't need proof anymore. The past didn't define me, it refined me. And I had my own story now, one that belonged only to me. That evening, I hosted a small dinner for close friends and family. A housewarming, though I hadn't moved, just redecorated, repainted, reclaimed. The energy was different now. Lighter, brighter, alive. As the night wound down, Vanessa pulled me aside. You know, she said, most people don't come out of something like that with this much peace. I smiled. That's because most people try to win. I didn't want to win. I just wanted my life back. After everyone left, I sat outside on the porch, a blanket wrapped around me, the sound of crickets cutting through the quiet. Callista texted a photo, May and Oliver at her place, playing a board game, laughing. Thank you, she wrote. I typed back. For what? Her reply, for not making me your enemy. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I turned off my phone, breathed in the night, and smiled to myself. Not because it was perfect, but because it was finally mine.